So hello everybody. The name is Milan Švařepa. I'm Director of Inclusion Europe, and I welcome you to this online exchange with our President Jyrki Pinomaa, who will not only share his experiences and views what's going on in Finland, because he's also a President of Inclusion Finland, but also what he sees as the developments in Europe. And then, of course, we would like to hear what your experiences in this situation are and what the situation is in different countries. So after the introductory part with Jyrki, there will be an exchange with all of you who will want to contribute. So let's jump right into it. Again, welcome everyone. Great that you found the time to join us. And let's start first by unmuting Jyrki, so we can hear you. And yeah, let's start with the, let's say, closer to home. Can you tell us a bit about what the situation with your personal is, and with your two sons? You wrote about it in a letter to our members and friends a couple of days ago. I think it would be interesting to hear what the situation is like now.
First of all, thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm very happy to share my experiences with you, and I hope that you will also do that with all of us here today. I'm myself right now at home. I live in Finland, and I'm happy not to live in a big city because we can be very well isolated here. I live in the countryside, and we have a house in a small village. We have about 5 houses here, so we don't meet many people here. I myself have been here at home now for more than 2 weeks because we returned home from 1 week holiday from Spain on the 5th of March, and by that Finland had decided that all people returning from abroad have to be in quarantine at home for 14 days. Besides that, I have caught a flu, which has been for 5 weeks. After returning from Spain, I was tested. It is not corona, so I'm free of that for the moment, but I don't know if it's good or bad because I can still catch it. I have 2 sons with intellectual disabilities. They are 33 and 28, and they live in their own with service 24/7, and they are totally isolated from us now. The policy in care homes in Finland is that there will be no visitors, and only the staff is allowed to come to the houses, and the home visits are also forbidden. So my sons have been totally isolated now for more than 2 weeks. The thing with them is that they don't speak, so we can't make phone calls with them, but we have managed to create, as I wrote, now a functioning Skype contact with them, and we can communicate with them with Skype and see their sign language also, so we understand each other much better that way. But of course, as parent, this is a very distressful time and a worrying time, and of course we are afraid that what happens if they catch the corona, how they will be treated and so on. So not very nice at all.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get to the medical aspects of this shortly, but maybe before it, could you also talk a bit about the situation in Finland more general? So I would assume this policy of closing this group home is not restricted to this one provider. That's similar to all the other residential services, I would assume. But Do you also know what's the situation with the families and the people who live in their own homes and flats, and what support they are getting or not getting, and what's the situation like in Finland in this regard?
Yes, this restriction applies to all care providers now. So it's the same in all care homes or group homes at the moment. Of course, it can change when we get more experience. But in Finland, we are lucky not to have yet more than under 2,000 corona cases, which are proved cases. So of course there are more because everybody don't get tested. In many families, the situation is quite distressful also and worrying, because if they had their children at home when the closure came, they have to stay at home until corona is over, until the epidemic is over. So in the beginning, at least, the situation was alarming that way, that I heard a lot from families that they don't get the support they would need. And we all know that if your child has moved away from childhood home already, and there is a reason for that, of course. And if they then return, the situation will come very, very difficult. And because of isolating and trying to isolate all the people, the care people in the try to minimize the movement between homes and care homes and everything. So I think it has been quite difficult until now, but I heard yesterday that there have been some new directives from our Ministry of Social and Healthcare, and they have wanted to say to people that also people at home have to get the help they need, the support and help they need. So the situation is kind of living all the time, and nobody seems to know what to do, and that is, I see it as a very big problem right now. We are maybe too careful right now, but on the other hand, the situation is like never before, and that's why maybe it's good to be too careful.
Okay, and to move to the European perspective, there's been, of course, many developments in different countries, or different countries are also affected by in a different scale, different levels, of obviously, and there's been the topics that you've already kind of touched upon. That's the access to medical care. There's been also a lot of very bad news about situation in some residential institutions, especially. We've heard from Spain, Poland, France, and it applies also to nursing homes or for all people where in some countries they essentially were turned into hotbeds of the infection. And another aspect, of course, is the lack of protective equipment for the staff or for families that support people who live in their own homes. We see that a lot in France or in Italy. And so this would be the main sort of pressing issues as far as we can see and what we hear. What is for you, Jyrki, the most sort of significant developments and things that you notice from the European level in the situation so far?
Well, for the first, the news from Poland, from a care home with 67 residents, out of which 52 had coronavirus, and the staff 14 with 8 with coronavirus. I think that's quite alarming, because that cannot be the only one in Europe. We all know that in this kind of bigger institutions, I don't call them care homes, I call them institutions, the contacts are much more frequent than in maybe if you live in apartment groups or group smaller group homes, and also the news about not giving intensive care for people with disabilities, categorizing people like that, I think that's very dangerous. We also had in Finland a case where one care home chief told us that she had received from her municipality a question of making a list of people living in that house, and how many of them or which of them couldn't be put into intensive care. This is absolutely something that shouldn't be asked any care provider, because the decision has always to be made by medical people, by doctors who are expert on this area. And we raised this question in Finland to we have a national advisory board of social and healthcare ethics, and they immediately made a statement about this, and it's right now a very big news in Finland. It's all over the newspapers. It's been in our parliament yesterday with a minister saying to us that this is not true. This cannot happen like this. People with intellectual disabilities, people with any disabilities have the same rights as everybody. And here I would like to emphasize the meaning of UNCRPD. It still applies also in this crisis situation, and our job is to remind people of it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's important point to make. Of course, the rights of people don't go away in any crisis, any situation, and if anything, they become more pronounced. As we could see what you were describing, there were news from other countries about similar tendencies. We also heard, let's say, as in the Finnish case, that the positive side of it was that due to the outcry, the authorities changed their approach, or in some cases issued useful guidance. I would like to use this opportunity to guide your attention to Inclusion Europe website, where there are resources about the coronavirus, mostly brought together from all kinds of organizations across Europe. There are also some resources about specifically access to healthcare. One of them, the guidance provided by the World Health Organization, and one also quite useful advice to medical staff provided by NHS England, which I think would be useful to others, and it has also the advantage it's in English, so it's easier for, I guess, for many people to use it, and then to eventually use it in their context as an advice for medical staff, how to approach the situation and how to work with people with intellectual disabilities. So, and with that, let's move to the next part of this exchange and the actual exchange. So, would like to invite you all who joined this meeting to share your experiences about what is happening in your countries, or ask any questions or raise any issues that you would like to.
I can share with you or with the group what is the situation in Portugal right now. We don't have the same situation in Spain, because Spain, it's Italian and Spain are the worst scenarios. But in Portugal, we have around 8,000 people with COVID, infected with COVID, compared to Spain, it's not. We cannot compare because now we had about 100 deaths. It's of course it's not a good scenario, because if one person dead, it is really bad. But it's not the same at Spain or Italy. And as you know, we have a huge network around the country, and we are supporting people at national level, and I think the things are going normally in Portugal. And as you know, we create some easy read information for people with intellectual disability, and we are disseminate the information, and we are also supporting the people and the families, because as you know, we have a huge network in Portugal. We have 25 person working on the organizations, and they are all them are mobilized to support people and the families.
Are there any restrictions to this? How to the operation of supporting people? Like, are in many countries, as Jyrki was just mentioning about Finland, like institutions are closed. People cannot go outside or inside to make visits. In other countries, there's a lot of restrictions on the staff that supports people in their own homes for all kinds of reasons. So are there any restrictions
for everybody
for Portugal?
Yeah, there are a lot of restrictions for everybody. I cannot go out. If I want to go out, I have to show a document that I'm working, and I need to go to do something real important. I cannot go out to make sport or to, and this restriction, it's for everybody, including the people are living in the residential support, and for the people are living in their own house or with their families. It's for everybody.
In some countries, they also kind of established when you need this permission to go out, essentially. They also established a provision for people with disabilities, like in some countries they call it therapeutic walks, but essentially that you are allowed to go outside for, I don't know, 1 hour, because you have a disability, and it's in some cases, it's very difficult to stay at home for 24 hours. So in some countries, they established that you can, with this permission, sort of go out for 1 hour a day or something. Do you have that in Portugal?
No, they of course they say we can go out to have 5, 10, half an hour, but they don't. It's like we can go, but every day in the television and the politics, they are saying don't go out, and if you go out, maybe you will find the policies, and they will ask you what you are doing outside. And it is because we are trying to protect ourselves, isolated, because we are confronting with the Spain problem, and we are trying to protect ourselves. And now I think the Portuguese people, all the Portuguese, they are dealing really well with this situation, because we are trying to protect ourselves, and we are trying to do the things by the book. Okay. I would like to share the problem, because we have I think two kinds of problems. It's the same in Finland, because we have a lack of protective equipment, because they are not the industry. They don't. There's a lot of people. I'm sorry, my English is not correct, but we have I think you understand. We have a lack of project equipment, and we need more COVID tests.
Okay, thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. So thank you, Joachim. So, and please, who else would like to share what's going on in your country and what the impact is in your countries? Please come in.
Hi, this is Elsa.
Hello.
Thank you for allowing everyone to join this webinar. I represent Special Olympics Europe Eurasia, and I think quite many of my colleagues are also in this call. And I just wanted to, I'm currently in Finland, so Jyrki gave a nice update already for my country. But since you mentioned this great thing that France is doing by providing education for special school students as well, I wanted to ask from you that since we are also Special Olympics works globally and we have a lot of activities that has had to be postponed by this situation, and we also feel like this is a time more than ever to connect with our athletes and our people. So we've been planning a lot. What can we do digitally, organize webinars or meetings with our friends. And since we found out about your website and we saw these great resources, how to use Microsoft Teams, what is coronavirus, and I wanted to ask if you have any tips for us. What is the by digitally connecting with people with intellectual disabilities? Already I got great tips about this this way that now when I'm speaking I see my text in writing, and what Jyrki said about Skype, if someone cannot speak then you can still use the sign language. Do you have any additional advices for us how to make this digital communication more accessible for all?
Well, I think that's part of the experience for everyone, and I would invite everyone else to share your experience on this. I think that many organizations are now put into the situation to learn and kind of do many of these things for the first time, or at least for us on the first time on such a scale. We have produced, as you mentioned, the easy to read explanation how to join these meetings. I know that, but I think we need, as Inclusion Europe, do much more and better to actually organize something for people with intellectual disabilities themselves, and we plan that in the coming weeks. What I would recommend as a specific answer would be to check out Learning Disability England, possibly Change People UK, because I know this week were doing quite a bit of work around engaging with self-advocates in the United Kingdom, and they have some interesting experiences coming out of it, including videos. Just this morning, I retweeted a nice video when they are basically the people with disabilities themselves are kind of organizing online cooking classes for others. So now just two specific tips what can be done. As I said, we are also learning to be more inclusive in this online environment. That's definitely true that what of course is the worrying situation is not only in the aspects that were already discussed on this call, but also in the fact that people with disabilities, if they make it to the news, that's usually sometimes mentioned as a sort of the high risk group, but not much of any other news. But I will also say that possibly now with organizations seeing more how things are actually progressing and what can work and what cannot work. This is, I think, improving. I can say, for example, to add another country to which I have a connection, in Czechia, they are just now also today probably going to announce that they will allow these therapeutic outings, let's say, for people, because also because in Czechia it's everybody has to wear face masks when you go outside, and that's of course a big issue for some people with intellectual disabilities or some people with autism who have problem wearing the face mask, so they couldn't go out at all. So now they will be sort of focusing on that and try and hopefully allowing them an exception. The other thing is though that still there is not enough attention to people with disabilities in general. When you even from about the discussion, let's say, about the nursing homes or care institutions or whatever we'll call them, as far as I can see, there's quite a bit of coverage in many countries about these institutions for old people, but there's not much about anything for people with disabilities. So that's definitely something that also would need to see some more improvement. So thank you very much, everyone who joined the meeting to listen in, and of course, a big thank you to everyone who contributed with your view of the situation in your countries. It was really useful to learn what is going on in your countries and how your organizations or as you as individuals, how you see that and what's happening. So thank you very much.